In the morning, I found fresh clothes hanging on a doorknob, a man's suit of small size. Though it was slightly too baggy for me, it was still a relief to shed my old and tattered castle uniform, the last piece of my old life. It took me some time to get downstairs, my legs stiff and achy from yesterday's hike.
Good morning. I was just about to wake you.
A man who I assumed was Alasdair in human form greeted me in the kitchen. Good morning, human Alasdair. Alasdair's blue eyes twinkled.
Alasdair is just fine. How do you feel about an omelette? This one is feta, caramelized red onion, and spinach.
My grumbling stomach answered that. He laughed good-naturedly.
A good meal can make any problem feel doable, and you, unfortunately, have no shortage of problems.
Alasdair returned to cooking, and I took a seat, feeling comfortable around him, but a little shy nonetheless. He was at ease in the kitchen, working calmly and efficiently. Last night's dinner felt like eons ago. Compliment his home, ask him if he wants his bedroom back, or thank him for his help. He waved away my thanks.
I appreciate it, but not necessary.
Isn't it dangerous for you to have me here? What will happen to you if I get caught?
You won't.
I might. Alasdair slid a beautiful omelette in front of me. It smelled amazing.
Trust me, you won't. And no, you being here is not a danger to me.
Alasdair held eye contact across the table.
If anything, this is the most interesting event I've experienced in years. I'm excited to have you here.
We ate. I finished first. He seemed to be taking his time, savoring every mouthful. That was delicious.
You're most welcome.
I remained at the table. I felt as though he was not yet finished with me. Where's Felix?
He's writing some letters. We'll leave him be for now.
What do you mean we'll leave him be for now? You're not the boss of me. I mean, your house, your rules, but if I feel like interfering with correspondence between Felix and his like-minded loonies, also known as associates, then I'm going to. It's kind of personal at this point. And by the way, did you know that he's the Caedonian prince? Alasdair hesitated for a moment before replying.
Yes, I was aware of his royal status.
Huh, really? Okay, I guess. Alasdair cleared away our plates and then took a seat at the table. But instead of taking his original seat, he took the one directly beside mine. I turned slightly to face him.
I've been watching you for a while now, Nova.
You have? Alasdair half smiled.
From the distance, of course. You're the refugee who grew up in the country that was once at war with her own. And yet you flourished in spite of all that stood in your way.
I don't feel like I flourished. Look at me now.
I am looking.
Alasdair was not afraid to hold eye contact, but it wasn't intense. His blue eyes never failed to capture my attention.
I see the gold is just beginning to grace the ends of your lovely locks.
It's growing back much faster than I thought it would. I tugged on a strand of my hair, already an inch longer than it was less than a week ago.
May I touch your hair?
Yeah, okay. No neck licking, though. He dragged his chair closer so that my knees were positioned between his. He leaned in until I could smell ink and aged books. Lifting his hands to my temples, he gently ran his fingers through my hair, lightly massaging my scalp as he did. It felt intimate, more than I realized it would when I agreed to it. I realized I had unintentionally closed my eyes. He tucked my hair behind my ears. His fingertips brushed down my neck, sending shivers down my spine. I opened my eyes and met his dark blue ones. Under his breath, he asked,
Did you enjoy that?
I nodded once, not trusting myself to speak. I thought he would move his chair back. Instead, he remained where he was, knee to knee, face to face.
How would you feel if I asked for a piece of your hair? For academic purposes?
No, I'd rather not. This feels sneaky. So, not right now, not like this.
I understand.
If Alistair was disappointed, he didn't show it. What's happening at the castle now?
Right now?
Alistair slumped in his chair as he tapped out of reality. It took me a second to realize he was mentally at the castle as Dusty the cat. A few seconds later, he was back.
In a word, chaos. The king is taking your escape as further evidence that you are guilty.
But I'm not.
I know, but I have to ask. What's your ideal outcome here?
I want a new life.
Say the royals do pardon you. Do you think you could still look at them the same way after all this? Could you forgive the king?
I didn't know.
You know, you're welcome here for as long as you feel comfortable.
I felt a rush of warmth towards him. He didn't owe me anything the way Felix did, yet he agreed to help me out of kindness. You're kind of... I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you're kind of special. I've never met anyone like you before. Alistair smiled, obviously pleased.
If you weren't completely adverse, would you mind if I interviewed you?
Interviewed?
Yes, for my work. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you this, but you have a rare and useful talent. It would be a pleasure to learn from you.
Feeling eager to please, I agreed.
Excellent. I have some work to catch up on now, so I'll take my leave.
I spent the rest of the day on my own. Both men busy with their own business. I felt like I was just occupying space in the house. Nothing to do, nowhere to be. Useful to no one, let alone myself. I went to bed early. Wait, what? You have something to do? Write a letter to Theo. Then go down and bother Felix a little bit because he's been really sus. Ask him more questions. He'll be annoyed, but who cares? He's always annoyed. You can use the design of the tower to justify your presence. Like, I was just going to the kitchen. Do you want something? Can you elaborate on a couple of things? Why am I asking? Oh, it's just small talk. That's what friends do. Also, this place is basically a museum/library of weird anomalies. If I understand Alistair's research interests correctly. I'm pretty sure he won't mind if we read something. Preferably on alchemy, but not necessarily. I would just go and explore, skim through the spines of the books, do some conspects. Treat this whole situation like a science project. Felix visited me in my dream that night. He sat in a suit and tie opposite from me in a little booth of a rather classy tea house. He watched as I took in my surroundings and my extravagant clothes. I wore a floor-length fitted maroon velvet dress. It was unlike anything I'd worn before. In front of me, there was a steaming cup of coffee. I tried not to let the surprise show on my face. You remembered. Felix shrugged. Where are we?
Madame Freaksel's tea house.
That didn't mean anything to me. Why are you walking my dreams, Felix? Why did you bring me here?
I'd like to talk to you in peace, and I thought neutral ground would be best.
Couldn't you talk to me in the real world? Felix scowled. Perhaps this conversation wasn't going as he'd planned.
If you have a problem with the tea house, then I can change the setting.
I know you can, but the destination doesn't matter. It's the fact that you presume that I would rather talk in a tea house wearing this. I gestured to my elaborate dress. The bond corset dug in everywhere. I wriggled a little in a vain attempt to ease my misery. Felix looked like he was about to disagree again, but then thought better of it.
You're right.
What do you want? You made it pretty clear last time we spoke that our arrangement had come to an end.
A dream is the best place to have a private conversation.
We had a lot of privacy in the tower.
You know how I feel about that cat.
I don't know how you feel about anything, man. He's not a cat right now. Wait, what's going on? So, Nova says Felix made it clear that the arrangement came to an end. I guess pointing to his reaction to the question about associates. And Felix is still a little on the previous topic. It's fine, I think it happens. So he says that he has privacy issues with the cat, which is true. And Nova responds with, he's not a cat anymore? Well, I'm with Felix here. It doesn't matter if he's a cat or a human. If they can't speak without knowing for sure that they're not being heard. As far as I understood, Nova's and Felix's rooms are not isolated from the staircase, so they don't have privacy. I secretly enjoyed riling Felix up. It was a satisfying way to vent some pent-up frustrations from the last week.
I didn't bring you here to argue about a man-cat. I've come to tell you that I'm leaving tomorrow evening.
Already? Where are you going? Or is that question too personal for our report? I took a slow sip from my cup, watching him struggle.
Look, I shouldn't have spoken to you like that last night. That was rude of me. Things are tense. Soon we will all be at war. So I have to ask you, on whose side do you fight?
Whoa. Well, first of all, I appreciate the apology, but then your next phrase is insane again. I never said I'm going to fight in this war. I'm not pledging allegiance to any of you crazy monarchs. Here's an idea for you. Why don't you make an alliance of some sort with Alasdair? I think he likes you. Maybe. He definitely likes our hair. But more importantly, he's in the council, and you can benefit from information he can give you. And you don't even need to trust him with your plans or anything. Just talk to him, charm him, see what he is willing to say. Get him to sympathize at least. He already helped you. There's this psychological trick, you know? People who helped you are inclined to like you. You're missing opportunities big time to your bad temper, so No, I'm not going to war under your leadership. No, thank you. It looks like a suicide mission right now.
There's not much time left. Sooner or later, you will have to pick a side. I finally heard back from my group, the rebels.
You mean the music band? You have? Why are you telling me this? Am I worthy of your attention yet? Felix ignored the jab and continued.
We cannot dismantle the whole war effort. The dominoes have already been lined up. But if we can pull out a few key dominoes from the formation, we can sway the outcome in our favor.
Again, I asked, why do I need to know what your plans are?
Because I don't want you as my enemy.
Felix had leapt to his feet when he shouted and knocked our drinks over. Had this been a cafe in a real world, people would have stared. Instead, we were ignored. He took a deep breath and sat down.
Sorry.
It was a small but genuine apology. A moment later, the spilled drinks were cleared away and replaced, as though it had never happened.
I'm telling you because you can have an impact on the future too. Whatever you decide to do. Don't return to the royal family. Your father is dangerous and insane.
I took pleasure in rolling my eyes. No need to sugarcoat it for me.
You're a big girl, you can handle it.
Do you want me on your side? He mulled over his answer as his hands lay on the antique table an inch away from my own. I had to admit he looked good tonight. The suit, the slicked back hair, it worked. A small smile tugged at his lips. Stay out of my mind.
I respect your boundaries, Nova. No more mind reading.
Oh, right. You respect them when you're in a good mood. It's not respect, but I'll take it.
Turns out, the more I get to know you, the less I need it. You write your thoughts on your face.
Theo used to tell me I was an open book.
You are, which is why you need to be wary of the cat.
Okay, so you don't trust Alistair, but he helped us out. If it weren't for him, we'd be still rotting down in those cells, or worse. Felix leaned back in his chair, unconvinced. Alistair asked for some of my hair. I said...
What?
I said no.
Oh, good. Why'd he want it?
I don't know. He was being vague. Not wanting to talk about Alistair, he changed the subject.
We know that the Crown is looking for you. We know that Alistair is still in contact with them. They think he's on their side. We think he's on our side. He's a double agent.
Yeah, no shit. But doesn't it mean that he's on his own side? Also, Felix didn't change the subject. We're still talking about Alistair. So, you think I shouldn't trust him?
Exactly.
But you want me to trust you? Felix crossed his arms and leaned forward. A slight frown graced his fine features.
You can't trust anyone but yourself.
Unexpectedly reasonable. That doesn't sound like much of a life.
Wasting away in a cell isn't much of a life either.
I didn't know what to say to that. I let my eyes wander around the room. Is this a real place in the outside world?
It is. In the capital of Kaidoa. Maybe you'll see it for yourself someday.
Is this where you take your dates? Felix snorted and twisted his cup in the saucer.
Sometimes. Your hair has grown back nicely, by the way.
Felix tugged on a golden strand of his own hair. Yeah, weird. It's only been a week. I'd never cut my hair before, so this whole thing was new.
Yeah, once our hair reaches a certain length, it'll stop growing. Kind of like animal fur.
Or eyebrows.
Or pubic hair.
Yours isn't. Felix laughed vibrantly.
Gold? No, just my head hair.
Also, they don't start gold at the roots. On the head, I mean. They don't become gold for 20 centimeters or so. It's kind of weird. I would guess that your hair are gold anywhere on your body if they can grow longer than 20 centimeters, and let's face it, that's the limitation that leaves just the head. Or does it? I really enjoyed listening to his accent. The high and low tones were almost musical. If I had grown up in Kaidoe, would I have sounded like that?
It's almost daybreak. Time to go. Don't forget what I said. And be careful, okay?
The dream dissolved, the colors swirling and merging before fading to black. I woke up in Alasdair's empty bedroom. My interview with Alasdair was at 10 in the study, and I didn't know what to expect.
Take a seat, Nova.
I took a seat on a leather-brown armchair in front of the roaring fireplace. I could see why he preferred sleeping in this room. It was certainly the most homely room in the tower.
I spent most of yesterday in a council meeting, and I must say, planning a war is by far the most tedious part of it.
I used to be a member of those council meetings. I felt a pang of resentment towards Alasdair for having what once was mine. I used to have everything, and I never appreciated it.
It's not looking too good, I'm afraid. For anybody.
Alasdair pulled a hefty notebook from the shelf and flicked it open. Without speaking, he took his time reading back through his notes. I waited patiently. To amuse myself, I examined the nearest bookshelf. Some of the books were quite old, or in languages I'd never seen before. I reached out to grab one just as Alasdair spoke.
Do you consider your talents a blessing or a curse?
A blessing or a curse? A curse or a blessing? I don't like either of those words. I think the better way to say it is that it's more beneficial than it's not. It has its downsides though, so neither. It is what it is.
A very mature response, Nova.
What? Was it a trick question, Alasdair? Alasdair made a long note in his book. He spent far longer writing than I did speaking, and I wondered what he was writing about me. Sorry, but what is this interview about? Alasdair set his fountain pen down.
I'm curious about you and your ability. How you feel about it and how it shaped you as a person.
Okay. But what were you writing just now? And what are you going to do with the information? I was slightly concerned that my thoughts and feelings would end up in some kind of publication somewhere.
Oh, this is just for my personal pleasure.
Alasdair assessed my expression and continued.
You have nothing to fear from me.
Okay, Doctor. I mean, I'd love to ask you something here. Like, you knew that Felix was a prince, but decided not to address it in any way. Why? Did you learn it after we escaped, or did you hope that he doesn't know you know? But what is the point? Everyone ignores Felix's princehood, and I get it, it's annoying, but you don't have to bow. You could simply acknowledge who he is. I'm sure it would have been a lot of fun. But I don't want to say Felix seems to think otherwise. Because it just feels like we're pushing them against each other. I don't want that. Alasdair nodded once.
In what way are your abilities limited?
I still have a lot to learn. Meeting Felix really drove that home. While I spoke, I noticed that he was purring softly. It was so faint, I could only just make it out. A soft rumble of contentment. Alasdair, who was still writing, seemingly hadn't noticed. You're not what I expected. You're exactly what I expected. Such a stereotypical non-wizard.
Am I?
Yeah, you seem to have youthful energy about you, even as a cat. Your cat self is just like your human self. Alasdair burst out laughing and continued to laugh, even though I had no idea what was so funny. When his mirth had finally settled, I said, "That was kind of rude."
I've avoided talking about this because I understand you may have a little trauma around it, but I need to talk about it now. What has your relationship been like with the king?
Well, he threw me in prison, so obviously not great.
I mean, before that.
He yawned, followed by a quick apology.
Sorry, I had a late night last night. I'd like to know if you think that the king's behavior has changed in the last few years. You've known him far longer than I have.
I thought he cared about me. I know I'm not his biological daughter, but until recently, I thought that it didn't matter to him. But now, I don't know what to think. I don't know what caused our relationship to sour so much. Alasdair gave me his full attention, and I felt a little self-conscious under the spotlight of his gaze.
I believe, and this is pure conjecture, but I believe that the king may be being influenced by another individual.
By who? Alasdair shook his head.
If I knew, I'd tell you, Nova. Let me look into this. If I find anything new, you'll be the first to know.
Why are you doing this? Why are you helping me?
Why shouldn't I help you? I think I'm in a unique position where I can help without personal risk. I told you that I've been watching you. That's because I admire you. I also, and I don't admit this lightly, I envy you. Your talents are obvious. I had to work hard to be a member of the magical population, yet you were born special. I guess I'm a little drawn to you because of it. Does that answer your question?
I was stunned. Alasdair had seemed so self-assured, so knowledgeable that sometimes I thought he knew more about me than I did. To hear him say he envied me for something I didn't choose, I
have to stop you there, Nova. It's time to bring this interview to a close.
He didn't say it unkindly, but there was certainly something new in the air. I felt like our friendship had changed, but only just. The time passed slowly. Everyone seemed to be waiting for something to happen. Felix spent most of the day in his room, only joining me for meals. Alasdair was either at the castle or asleep, and I was by myself all day. Felix was busy writing a lot of letters, and he received a few in return. I saw him tossing some of them into the fire and watching them burn. Alasdair, though he cut the interview short, had no urgency to recommence it. The next day, Felix announced that he'd found his team, the rebels, which of course I already knew. Alasdair and I were playing chess in the study. Without knocking, Felix strode in and remained by the door. He spoke directly to Alasdair.
I found them, the rebellion. It's time for me to go. I'll leave as soon as it gets dark.
Alasdair smiled.
Good luck. Thank you.
Felix's gaze fitted to mine and away. Then he turned on his heel and left.
What's your move, Nova?
I analyzed the board. I was losing badly, no doubt about that.
I'm not talking about chess.
Alasdair was eyeing me like a hawk as I processed what he meant. He rested his elbows on his knees and leaned forward. In a low voice, he murmured,
Are you staying or leaving?
I hadn't thought about it, but in that second, I knew. Oh, I'm staying. A faint crease appeared between Alasdair's brows. He didn't seem as pleased as I thought he'd be. What's wrong? He sighed suddenly, deeply.
Are you sure? You're welcome here, of course, but is this really what you want?
Is there a reason why I shouldn't want to stay here? You said you'd help me, right?
Yes, and I will, of course. I just want you to be sure.
I'm sure. Alasdair nodded, looking withdrawn.
Do you wish to say goodbye to Felix?
I thought about it for a short moment. Nah, he and I didn't really see eye to eye. If he wants to say farewell, he knows where to find me.
In that case, shall we return to the game?
But Alasdair was too distracted to play well, and to my surprise, I won that match. I spent much of my evening mulling that conversation over. He'd seemed so eager to help me out, but when it came down to it, was it all just a show? It felt like he was hoping I'd leave. Or was I reading too much into it? I didn't bother to wave Felix off when he departed alone later that evening. He and I had never quite been on the same page. We constantly struggled to harmonize, and learning to trust each other would be an uphill battle all the way to the very top. But we are on good terms with him right now. Here's what I think. I think we need to give Felix some grace. Obviously, he has some character flaws, but he is fresh out of prison, and he has been gaslit from what I can tell. These are good reasons to be unstable and confused. So, if we translate it into a real situation, going with him is simply a bad option. And they're all talking about how Guard is looking for Nova, completely ignoring, again, that the Guard probably is looking for Felix even more. Add to that he's inconsistent, arrogant, has objectively bad, uninformed takes, and you'll have a recipe for a disaster. But on the other hand, if we judge him from the entertainment perspective, then he's gold, like his hair. I feel like every talk with Felix was at the very least amusing, and most of the times it was just hilarious. I'm gonna miss this. It's legitimately sad that he's leaving. Plus, he has some chemistry with Nova, and I feel that it's earned. My point is that he deserves a goodbye, instead of being ignored. Again. So much for friends and allies. Spending the next few weeks with Felix would be torture, and I wasn't a glutton for punishment. Instead, I'd accepted Alasdair's offer of help, hoping that his connection to the castle would bring me closer to fixing my broken family ties with the king and queen. But I was starting to realize that working towards clearing my name with Mr. Tall, Dark, and incredibly handsome at my side would be a torture of a different kind. Clearing the name? I don't think we should do that. We did discuss the king and queen a little bit with both Alasdair and Felix, and I was under the impression that we all agree that Nova needs to move on for now. They betrayed her. Even the queen did. She helped, but in the grand scheme of things, she still treated Nova like someone she can afford to sacrifice. So I feel like story-wise, this turn to clear our name is unwarranted. It goes against the choices and the dialogues. But okay, even if it wasn't the case, what good can it do? Alasdair asked, if the royals pardon you, etc. But Nova did nothing to be pardoned for. This framing is useless. If she's pardoned, she still have zero influence, zero decision-making power, zero control over the situation or her life. This path leads to nowhere unless the royals repent. And that's a very long shot. Come to think about it, what is it that we want? What does Nova want? I think she would like to stop the war and not die while doing so. I feel like this is the best case scenario. She also really likes her job, which is surprising, considering the betrayal around it and how she's used for it. Well, newsflash, you don't need a boss to do this work. You can and you should do it at your own discretion. So when we were in prison and Nova walked Dusty's dream and got through to Alasdair, I wonder, what if we learn to possess an animal, say a mouse, in a castle? Would we be able to dream walk? You know, drink the tea, jump into the mouse, and get in a dream of someone within the range around the mouse. Delightfully devilish. Would it work? Will we look like a mouse in a dream? I know, it took years for Alasdair to learn his power, but what if we're extremely talented, or maybe he can do it? Academic purposes, incremental progress. Okay, never mind. I don't think it's doable. On another note, we need to contact Theo. He hates the castle, he really likes Nova, and we need to get him out of there. Otherwise he might die in this stupid war. But what's the best way to do it even? Wouldn't the letter be kind of suspicious? Damn, I hope we have a secret code or something. On another hand, he wanted to leave, so maybe he did? I mean, it's really bad that we didn't contact him earlier. What if he didn't leave just because Nova was missing? Well, overall, I do think that it's kind of okay to stay close to the castle. Something fishy is going on there, but I don't think that clearing our name should be a priority right now. It's saving people we like and trying to save innocent people. That's a better angle, I think. And the torture from Mr. Tall, Dark, and incredibly handsome. I don't know what that's about. Alasdair seems perfectly pleasant to me. I mean, he's kind of overly polite, and he just showers Nova with compliments. It kind of gives the sense of closeness and distance at the same time. It's interesting. I'm also having a hard time reading his lines. They don't sound natural to me, but English is not my first language, so probably that's the reason. But I appreciate distance so much more than fake familiarity. It's kind of beautiful. Unfortunately, it's not funny. But we'll see. Maybe it can be.